Hey everyone, how's it going? I just finished making this really simple game in Phaser using JavaScript. Now the way this works is you collect all the stars, and once you collect them all, you're going to see that a bomb drops. If you can avoid the bomb and collect the stars again, another bomb's going to drop, but if you hit the bomb, you're going to get a game over. If you want to see how I made this game, stick around. It's actually extremely simple. It's only it's a little under 150 lines of code, and I put a lot of spaces in between my code, so it's really more like 100. Anyway, I'm gonna hop right into it, so hopefully you check it out. This is a simple boilerplate or project template. We're going to be adding this to the beginning of our project. This uses webpack, which means things like it reloads on save, and you can make a build really easy, and you can use things like Babel to write more advanced JavaScript, and then it'll just all build down to something that could run on even Internet Explorer. So for this, I'm going to go into Git Bash. You can use any terminal you want, or if you don't want to even use a terminal, you could try to avoid it for as much as you can, but at some point you will have to go into one. I'm going to navigate to the desired directory. For me, that's going to be Phaser. Oh, no such directory exists. Let's see. Oh, I named it Phaser 3. Okay. And I'm going to make a new directory here. I'm going to call this tutorial-game. I'm going to say git clone. I'm going to paste that URL, and it'll clone it in here. So now you'll see we have this Phaser 3 project template. Okay, I'm going to open this up in my text editor. And inside the terminal in my text editor, which I open by holding Control and pressing the tilde, which is the button to the left of the 1, I'm going to say npm install. This is going to install all the necessary dependencies for the project. Alright, and then I'm going to say npm start. I'm going to pull up the game here. And this is just a very, very basic mock Phaser game, right? This is just basically a screen that's been drawn on. Now, if you want to, you could try to go through and adjust some of the sizes and whatnot, maybe make more JavaScript files. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just code it all in this one file to keep things simple, because it's going to be a very, very small game, and I'm not going to adjust any of the sizes either. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete a little bit of this boilerplate code. I'm going to get rid of everything inside of create. I'm going to get rid of what's inside of preload and save it. That's just going to get rid of that little image for us. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some physics. So I'm going to say physics default. This default is going to be arcade. And then for arcade, what we're going to want to say here is, set gravity equal to an object. And for us, this object is going to be the y index, right? Because we're going to want to be always falling down. So we're going to set that to, let's say, 450. And we can mess around with it later if we want to. Let's also set debug equal to true. Okay, now inside of this class, myGame, what we're going to be doing is writing all of the code for the actual game. Phaser comes with 3 main functions: preload, create, and update. The way it works is like this. Preload is anything that you want to have loaded, right? Maybe images. You might want to have some images loaded, right? Create is things that you're going to want to create. You're going to want to create something like a background scene by placing images in various places. Update is what you're going to want to have running every, second or, 60 seconds, whatever your refresh rate is. You're going to want to run that for each tick. So this is things like checking for movement or enemy collision, things that could cause game over, stuff like that. If you've never developed games before, that's totally fine. This is a very simple tutorial. It'll show you the basics of game development. So you'll be able to understand it by the end of this video. After we have the git clone step done, we're going to download our assets. Now I'm actually going to steal the majority of this tutorial from Phaser 3's official tutorial. I'm just making a video version of it, and I'm also going to be showing you how to do it with webpack. As I said before, what we're going to need from this is just this zip file, and then save it and just extract it. Once all of that's done, I'm going to go inside of it and I'm going to drag this assets folder into the SOC folder. You might already have an assets folder. You can just delete the original like I did. And then you should have this new nice assets folder, which just has a couple of assets in it. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is import all my images. Since we're using webpack, we're not going to be able to follow the standard written tutorial for Phaser. We actually have to import them like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is, of course, import Phaser from Phaser, which is already done. And then I'm going to import the sky background from sky.png, which is one of our assets. To make it a little easier, I'll leave the assets open. Then we can import the ground from assets/platform. Okay, you get the idea. We're going to do a couple more of these. We're going to get the star, the bomb, and the monkey. Monkey is actually called dude. Okay, so this should be all of our assets. The next thing I'm going to do is run npm start, and this should start up the Phaser project. You'll see right now it's just this blank black screen. That's totally fine. We're going to fix that. The next thing we're going to do is preload all of our images. We can do that by saying this, period load, period image. And the first one I'm going to want is sky. And then we're going to pass it this sky variable, which we imported. Now, the traditional way to do this in Phaser would be to just give it the directory. However, that's not going to work with webpack. It's going to cause some issues. So we're going to do it this way. Then inside of create, what we can say here is this period add image. Let's give it a position. I'm going to give it 400 and 300 because that's what the tutorial recommends. And then I'm going to pass sky. What we should see now is this nice blue sky background. If you're seeing this, you're on the right path. If not, take a second, make sure your code looks the same as mine, and we'll see if we can fix it. Next thing that we can do is load the rest of our images. So we can say this, load image, Now we're going to load the ground. We're going to do this a few more times, so I'm just going to copy and paste. We're going to need the star. And we're going to need the bomb. Now, the next one is actually interesting because it's going to be a sprite sheet. If you look at dude.png, it's actually a sprite sheet. This is how we're going to be able to make the animation. So in order to load a sprite sheet, what you want to say is this load sprite sheet. The name is going to be dude. We're going to pass it the monkey, which is the sprite sheet. And then we're going to declare what we want for the frame width and frame height. For frame width, let's give it 32. And for frame height, let's give it 48. Alright, now let's go back into the create menu. What we can do in here is we can create a group of platforms. These platforms are going to essentially be the ground PNG, but we're going to add some physics so that the monkey, or dude, is going to be able to stand and walk on them, and the stars will also collide. So will the bombs. We're going to do this by saying const platforms equals this, physics, add, static group. We've now created a static group known as platforms. So let's create a new platform. We can do that by saying platforms, create, and let's give it 400 and 568 for the X and Y. And then what we can do is we can pass a string. Now this string is going to be the image that we want. We're going to pass it the ground. Then what we can say is period set scale to and period refresh body. Now this first part we're going to do a few more times. We're going to want to create a couple of platforms. So let's do it 1, 2, 3. Let's just change these numbers around. This can be 600, 400. This can be 50. 250, and this can be 750 and 220. All right, look at that. We have all these little grounds now. This is what we're going to be using for the player again. Next up is going to be for the player. Now, you'd think we would define player using const platforms, but we're actually going to use this player. We're going to make it a property of this class, right? Because this is a JavaScript class. If you know JavaScript, you know object-oriented programming, this is a class. The reason that we're going to do that is because we also want to use it inside of update. So we want to make it global to the class. We can do that by saying this, period, player equals this, physics, add, sprite, and then we're going to pass it the dimensions. So I'm going to say 100, 450, and dude. And there we go. You'll see there's no physics yet. Well, there's physics, that's why he's falling, but there's no sense of collision. But we can add that really easily by saying this, player set bounce 0.2, which will make the player bounce when it collides. And then we can say this, player set collide world bounds, make that true. And you'll see now the player cannot fall outside of the little square. But it's still not on the platform, right? Well, we're going to fix that too. We're going to do that by making this really cool call. This is one of the things that makes, using game frameworks so awesome, right? Imagine the code it would take to actually write the JavaScript to just detect collision and then make it do something, well, to make this easy, we can literally just type this physics add collider this player, and we're going to collide it with platforms. So now any platforms are going to collide with the player, and you'll see that our little dude lands perfectly right on top of that. And if you're wondering why there's this little hitbox around him, that's actually part of what I created. It's because we have debug set to true. So this is going to let us know how good our hitbox is, right? Maybe we should make the hitbox a little smaller. Let's say 400. All right, so that's platforms. So let's make a little comment here and say platforms. Then let's do animation. Let's make an animation for our player. Let's say this anims create, and now this key is going to be turn, and the frames, this is going to be equal to dude, which is all of our frames, and we want the fourth frame, so we're going to grab frame 4, and the frame rate here will be 20. Now why 4? Well, if you look at the PNG, 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is the turning animation, right? This is where they aren't facing a specific side, they're just kind of standing still idly. So that's what we're going to want for the turning. Next up, let's make the walking. So this anims create here the key is going to be right, and the frames is going to be this anims generate frame numbers. Dude is what we're going to pass because that's our sprite sheet, and then what we're going to say here is start 5 and 8. Frame rate, this can be equal to 10, and repeat is going to be -1. Now we're going to basically take this same thing, except we're going to do left, and we're going to make the numbers 0 to 3. And those are our basic animations. We'll be seeing those in a minute. Let me just scroll down here to update. This is where we're going to control the player movement. In order to do that, we can say const cursors equals this input keyboard create cursor keys. Then we can start making some cursor keys. So let's say if cursors left is down, so if the left key is being clicked, we're going to want to say this player set velocity x, and we're going to want to set that to minus 160, right, because we want it to go left, so we're saying on the x-axis go this way backward. And then we're going to say this anims play, and we're going to play left, and we're going to pass that true. Then we're going to say else, and we're going to copy this if statement and paste it. Let's change this to right. Make this 160, make this right. And that should be good. Let's see if we have a working game. We have an error. Okay, let's see if we can figure this out really quickly. Cannot read properties is down. Because we have right. Okay, let's make this right. Okay. Undefined play. Player anims, that's why. This dot player dot anims. Sorry about that. And there we go. Now we have movement, we have left, and we have right. But you'll see we have some problems. For example, it doesn't stop walking. I'm not clicking any keyboards right now. It's just going to continually walk, and it's going to make a mess of everything. But we can fix that really easily. Something that we can say here is else this player set velocity x 0, and then this player anims play turn. And now we should only walk when we click it. Perfect. Now all we need is a jump button. So something else that we can do is outside of this, right, because jump is a unique button. It has nothing to do with going left or right. If cursors up is down, let's say also and this dot player body touching down, this player set velocity y, and we're going to set this equal to minus 300. Which should give us a decent jump. Oh, we don't jump high enough. Let's give it 350. We still do not jump high enough. Okay, we need a very high jump for this. Let's do minus 400. Let's see if we can clear all these jumps. 1, 2, can we get the last one? So close. We're gonna need a little bit more. Let's do 420. This is the fun of game development. Trying to get just the right amount so that you can clear the jump. We can't. Can we jump on it from here? Oh, we can. Okay, so we're good then. As long as we can make it from at least one side, it's okay. All right. I'm going to turn this debug mode off too. I'm going to set it equal to false. I don't think it's really going to help us because this isn't a very complicated game, and it looks a little bit cleaner now. Alright, now that we have our basic player, the animations, and the platforms, we can start making some stars and some bounds. And then we should be all done. Let's start out with the stars. What we can say here is const stars. Now notice we can use const, we don't have to use this. This doesn't have to be a global variable, so we can avoid using the this keyword. We can say const stars equals this physics add group. The key here is going to be stars. Repeat is going to be 11. And set xy. For this, what we can say is x 12, y 0, and then we can say step x 70. Now let's make some stars. Let's say stars, period, children, iterate. This is going to take in a function, and we're going to have a child. Let's say child set bounce y. And then let's say here phasor math float between, let's say 0.4 and 0.8. This should give it a random bounce between 0.4 and 0.8. This physics add collider stars platforms this physics add overlap this player, right, because we want to overlap the player and the stars. Now we're going to do something interesting here. We're actually going to pass it a function. We're going to call this function collect, and then null and this. Now passing this function, what that's going to do is that's going to say, hey, when this player overlaps with stars, do this function. Now we don't have that function yet. We're going to make it. So we're going to say function collect which is going to take in a player and the stars, or I guess one star. Then inside of this, let's just say star period disable body true true. Now you'll see we have all these stars. Well, we should have all these stars. It's a little buggy. Let's see if we can fix it. The key here should be star. That's part of the problem. Now we have a whole bunch of stars. Nice. But you'll see that they all go to one place. We don't want that, right? We want them to be sporadic. which is what this function should do, except I wrote statx instead of stepx. So let's see now if we have them being sporadic. There we go. Well, now you have a clear idea of what stepx does. It's going to step the x by 70 for each one, and that's why they're perfectly spaced out by 70 pixels. And now we can go through and we can collect each and every star. This would essentially complete the game or the level of the game, but we don't have that code built in yet. Let's build it in. Alright, I'm going to leave this collect function at the very bottom of my create method because we're going to be using that for some stuff later. We're going to be adding to it. So let's make a comment here and let's say stars. Stars collision. And then let's add our bombs. We can do that by saying const bombs equals this physics add group. Then let's say this physics add collider. Now what we're going to be adding here is bombs and platforms. And then this physics add collider, this player bombs, let's say bomb touched, null, and this. And then we can make a function here called bomb touched. And we're going to pass the player and the bomb. Let's say this physics pause. Sorry, pause is actually a method. This player, let's set a tint equal to 0x ff000, and this player anims play turn. And that's going to be the end of our game there. While we're doing this, we can also make some score text. So let's say this score text equals this add text 16, 16, and let's say score 0. Then let's pass an object. This object is going to contain the font size and the font and the fill color. The fill color is going to be #000, and the font size is going to be 32 pixels. So you'll see now we have a score of 0, and the goal is each time we grab one of these little stars, the score should go up by 1, and then once we grab all the stars, we should start dropping bombs. And if we hit the bomb, it's game over. Okay, let's also say this period score equals 0 at the very start. Then we can go into our collect player star. So we actually don't say this score or this score text. I think these can both be constants. Might be wrong. Or actually, this can be a constant. This should be let because we're going to be changing the score throughout the game. So now we're going to go back to our collect function and we're going to add some stuff to it. First we can say score plus equals 1. Then we can say score text, period, set text, and we're going to set the text to score, colon, and then we're going to add the actual score. So let's see if this score is working right now. The score is working. Now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. So far, so good. The next thing that we can do here is add in our bombs. So let's say if there's no stars, and we can do that by saying if stars count active true equals 0, then what we're going to want to do is say stars. Really what we're going to want to do is the same thing we already did, so I'm just going to copy it. And then instead of this, what we're going to say in here is child enable body true child period x 0 true true. And this is just going to enable the body. Okay. Something else that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to spawn a bomb. So we can do that by saying var x equals player x less than 400. Question mark phaser math between, let's get a number between 400 and 800. And if that's not where the player x is, then what we're going to do is get another phaser math between, although this one's going to be 0 and 400. This way the bomb just doesn't spawn right on top of you, because that would be unfair. Okay, now let's say bomb set bounce 1, bomb set collide world bounds true, and lastly bomb set velocity and now we're going to pass in an x and a y. The y is going to be 20. The x is going to be another phaser math between. This way we have a varying one. And this is going to be between negative 200 and 200. So if this all worked, we should be able to grab all the stars. And then a bomb should spawn. Okay, a bomb did not spawn. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's see if we can figure out why a bomb didn't spawn. Uncaught type error. Default A set bounce is not a function. Okay. Let's see. because we never declared the bomb. I'm so dumb. Sorry about that. Const bomb equals bombs create x 16 and then bombs. At least I think this was bombs. Let me make sure. It might have actually been bomb. It was bomb. Okay, so let's change that. Okay, sorry about that. Let's try this again. Fun part of game development is when you get so far that it's more hard to get to the actual debugging process. And there we go. There's a bomb. So let's avoid the bomb first. Grab all the stars. And there's another bomb. This is working perfectly. Now when we hit the bomb, you'll see we just die. If I really wanted to polish this up, I'd make a game over screen. This is kind of more of a crash course of an introduction, so I'm not going to go that far, but you can always just refresh it and play again. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like and let me know you enjoyed it. Also, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. I make a lot of programming videos, and I'm planning to do some more on Phaser as well. Phaser's a really cool little framework, so I'll probably do a few more. Take it easy and have a good day.